AITA for refusing to give my sister the house I inherited after our parents died, even though she says I don't need it. I am 34M and my sister is 38F. Growing up, we were never close. She was the golden child, outgoing, loud, always in trouble, but somehow always forgiven. I was the quiet one who followed rules, got good grades, and learned early not to expect much praise. Our parents weren't abusive, but they were very clear about who needed more attention, and it was never me. I moved out at 18, paid my own way through college, and only came home for holidays. My sister stayed local, bounced between jobs, and moved back in with our parents multiple times. She has 2 kids with 2 different fathers, neither of whom are involved. Our parents helped her constantly, babysitting, paying bills, fixing her car, and covering rent when she fell behind. I didn't resent the help at the time because I was used to being independent, but I did notice the pattern. 5 years ago, I moved back to our hometown for work. Our parents were aging and starting to struggle, so I helped where I could. I took them to appointments, fixed things around the house, and handled paperwork. My sister would stop by occasionally, usually when she needed something, but most of the responsibility fell on me. We never talked about it. It was just understood. Last year, both of our parents passed away within 6 months of each other. It was brutal. I was the executor of the estate, something they had asked me to be years earlier. In their will, they left the house to me. The rest of their assets were split evenly, but the house was specifically mine. I didn't know this until after they passed. I didn't ask for it, and I didn't influence it. It was their decision. When my sister found out, she lost it. She said it was unfair, that she had kids and needed the house more than I did. I am single, no kids, and have a decent job. She said our parents must have been manipulated or not in their right minds. That hurt, especially since I was the one there every day taking care of them. I tried to be sympathetic. I offered to let her stay in the house temporarily while she got back on her feet, but I made it clear it would be temporary and that I would still own it. She agreed at first. Within 2 months, she started acting like it was hers. She redecorated without asking, threw away my parents' things, and told her kids they were finally home for good. When I reminded her of our agreement, she accused me of threatening to make her homeless. She told extended family that I was kicking her and her kids out of their childhood home. Suddenly, I was getting calls and messages saying I should be ashamed of myself and that family comes first. None of these people had offered her housing or financial help themselves. Things escalated when I told her she needed to start paying rent if she wanted to stay longer. I wasn't even asking market rate, just enough to cover property taxes and maintenance. She screamed at me, said I was greedy, and that our parents would be disgusted by me. That one really got to me. After that fight, I gave her written notice to move out within 60 days. I helped her look for apartments, sent her listings, and even offered to cover her security deposit. She refused all of it and doubled down on saying the house should be hers. She said I could just sign it over to her and start fresh somewhere else. The final straw was when I came by the house and found that she had invited a boyfriend I barely knew to move in. He was sleeping in my old room, using my things, and had changed the locks because he didn't feel comfortable with me having access. I called a locksmith and changed them back while they were out. That turned into a massive blow-up. Now she and the rest of the family are saying I am heartless and choosing property over my own nieces and nephews. They say I don't understand because I don't have kids and that real family would sacrifice. From my perspective, I have been sacrificing my entire life, and this is the one thing that was left to me. I feel guilty because I know her situation is harder than mine. I know the kids are innocent in all this, but I also feel like if I give in now, I will be supporting her forever and losing the last thing my parents left me. I didn't create her circumstances, and I didn't write the will. So AITA for refusing to give my sister the house and making her move out even though she says I am destroying her family. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to give my sister the house I inherited after she planned her entire future around it without asking me. I, 32F, lost my grandmother 2 years ago. She basically raised me while my parents worked nonstop, and we were extremely close. When she passed, she left me her small 3-bedroom house. It wasn't a surprise to me, because she had talked openly for years about wanting me to have a stable place to live and not struggle the way she did when she was young. The house is modest, in a quiet neighborhood, fully paid off. I moved in about 6 months after her death and have been slowly fixing it up while working full-time. My sister, 29F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. She's very charismatic and emotional, while I'm more reserved. Growing up, she got a lot of attention because she was the baby and also because she had a habit of landing in dramatic situations. Our parents helped her financially multiple times as an adult, paying off credit card debt, covering rent when she quit jobs suddenly, and helping with her wedding that never happened. I've mostly been independent since I was 18. About a year ago, my sister got engaged to her boyfriend of 8 months. I was happy for her and congratulated them. During that time, she started talking a lot about how excited she was to finally settle down and how nice it would be to raise kids in a house instead of an apartment. I assumed she meant eventually buying one or renting a bigger place. Then, at a family dinner, she casually mentioned how she and her fiancé were thinking of moving into grandma's house once they got married. Everyone looked at me, and I was confused. I said something like, "What do you mean?" She replied that it made sense for them to live there since they were starting a family, and I could always find somewhere else because I didn't have kids. I reminded her that the house was mine. She laughed it off and said we'd talk about it later. After that, she started referring to the house as our future home in conversations, especially around our parents. She talked about which room would be the nursery, how she'd redo the kitchen, and how nice the backyard would be for kids. Every time, I felt more uncomfortable, but I kept thinking she'd eventually realize she was being unrealistic. A few months later, she directly asked me when I was planning to move out. I told her I wasn't planning to move at all. She got upset and said I was being selfish, that Grandma would have wanted the house used by a family with children, and that I was wasting space living there alone. I reminded her that Grandma chose to leave it to me, not her, and that I had built my life around staying there. That conversation blew up. She cried, accused me of choosing a house over her happiness, and said her marriage was now starting on the wrong foot because of me. Our parents later called me and suggested I consider letting her live there for a few years or selling it and splitting the money. They said it would keep the peace and that I didn't really need such a big place. I said no. I explained that this was my home, that I'd put money and emotional energy into it, and that I wasn't comfortable uprooting my life because she made assumptions without asking me. I also pointed out that she and her fiancé both work and could rent or buy like anyone else. Since then, my sister has gone low contact. She tells extended family that I stole her future and that I'm punishing her for wanting kids. Some relatives have reached out saying family should come before property and that I could be more flexible. Others agree that it's unreasonable to expect me to hand over my inheritance. What hurts the most is that I feel like my role in the family has once again become the one who should give in. I miss my sister, but I also feel deeply disrespected and taken for granted. I didn't ask for this conflict, and I never promised her anything. Still, part of me wonders if holding on to the house is worth losing family relationships. So, AITA for refusing to give up or share the house I inherited, even though my sister planned her life around it without my consent? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she reassigned my role at the last minute and told me I was being selfish for being upset? I am 32F and my sister is 29F. Growing up, we were close in the way siblings are when they survive the same chaos. Our parents divorced when we were teens, money was always tight, and I ended up taking on a semi-parent role. I drove her to school, helped with homework, and covered small expenses when I started working. Because of this, my sister has always said I was her rock, and when she got engaged last year, she asked me to be her maid of honor. I was genuinely honored and said yes immediately. From the start, I took the role seriously. I helped her tour venues, gave input on the guest list, planned the bachelorette weekend, and even fronted some costs when vendors wanted deposits before she had the cash. I didn't complain because I could afford it, and because I believed this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing for her. I used most of my vacation days for wedding-related events and skipped a work conference so I could attend her dress fittings. At no point did she indicate there was any issue with how things were going. About 2 months before the wedding, my sister started acting distant. Messages went unanswered, plans changed last minute, and when I asked if everything was okay, she said she was just stressed. I backed off, assuming she needed space. Then, 3 weeks before the wedding, she asked me to meet her for coffee. I thought she wanted to finalize details. Instead, she told me she had decided to make her future sister-in-law the maid of honor instead of me. She explained that her fiancé's family is very traditional, and that it would mean a lot to them if his sister had that role. She said I would still be basically the same thing, just without the title, and she wanted me to do a reading during the ceremony instead. I was stunned. I asked why this was only coming up now, after months of planning. She said she didn't think I would take it well earlier and hoped I'd understand because it was just a title. I told her I was hurt, not because of the title alone, but because of how much I had already invested emotionally, financially, and practically. I asked if her fiancé had an issue with me. She said no, but that his parents felt the wedding should reflect their family too. When I pointed out that I had been her support system for years, she accused me of making it about myself and said a good sister would want to keep the peace. After that conversation, I went home and cried harder than I had in years. I realized that I felt used. I had done the work, spent the money, and given the time, only to be quietly replaced when it became inconvenient. The more I thought about it, the more attending the wedding felt unbearable. I imagined sitting there watching someone else stand in the spot I had been promised, smiling for photos while pretending everything was fine. I called my sister 2 days later and told her I needed to step back completely. I said I would not attend the wedding. I explained that it was too painful and that I needed to protect my own mental health. She immediately got angry and said I was punishing her and trying to ruin her big day. She reminded me that guests had already been told I was involved and said my absence would cause questions and embarrassment. Our parents got involved and told me I was being dramatic. My mother said that weddings are stressful and that I should be the bigger person, especially since I'm older. My father said I should go, smile, and deal with my feelings later. No one acknowledged how blindsided I felt or how much I had already given. When I suggested my sister reimburse me for the expenses I covered, she said that was petty and that family doesn't keep score. Since then, my sister has sent me messages alternating between guilt-tripping and anger. She says I am choosing pride over family and that I will regret missing such an important moment. Part of me worries she is right. Another part of me feels that if I go, I will be teaching her that my feelings don't matter and that I will always step aside quietly. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after being removed as maid of honor at the last minute, even though she says I am making everything harder and hurting the family? AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from planning? I, 29F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emma, 32F. Growing up, we were close, but as adults, our personalities clash more often than not. Emma is extremely controlling and perfectionistic, while I'm more laid-back and spontaneous. We usually manage to coexist, but big family events always turn into stress-inducing minefields. 2 years ago, Emma got engaged to her fiancé, Matt, 33M. When she announced it, I was genuinely happy for her. I offered to help in any way I could. I thought maybe we could bond during the wedding planning process, but that was not to be. From the start, she insisted she had everything under control and didn't need my help. I figured, okay, fine. I would step back and be supportive from the sidelines. About 6 months into planning, I started noticing small comments from mutual friends and family about how Emma was doing most of the planning alone, but had apparently enlisted some help from her other sister-in-law and a couple of friends. I didn't think much of it initially, but then she began sending vague invitations to events that I assumed I would be included in, like dress fittings and planning meetings. When I asked, she would just say, "Oh, it's fine. You don't need to worry about it." I tried again to get involved when she sent a cryptic text about needing help with table arrangements. I offered, but she replied with a long text, basically saying she had her vision and didn't want to compromise, but thanked me for the offer. I felt hurt, but didn't want to push, thinking maybe she just wanted a smaller circle. Things escalated a few months later when our parents suggested that I might want to contribute financially to the wedding. I was surprised because we had never discussed splitting costs outside of the traditional host pays scenario. Emma told our parents she didn't need any money from me, but that I was welcome to contribute if I wanted to. At first, I didn't want to. I wasn't close enough to the process to feel like I should chip in. My parents and friends encouraged me, saying it would be a nice gesture and that weddings are expensive. I agreed to contribute a modest amount, thinking that was fair and would keep the peace. I sent her the money with a message saying, "Happy to help out." A few weeks later, I received a message from Emma saying that she appreciated my contribution, but she noticed I hadn't RSVP'd for the bridal shower or bachelorette party. I explained that I had been left out of all the planning and wasn't sure when or where these events were happening. She replied with a rather snippy message saying she assumed I wasn't interested in being involved. I tried to clarify, but she just stopped responding. Fast forward to 2 weeks before the wedding, and I get a group chat invitation for finalizing the wedding budget and seating arrangements. I opened it, and it was full of people who had been coordinating with her from the beginning. I realized that my contribution money was included in the budget she had already finalized without consulting me about anything. She had essentially assumed my donation was an obligation, not a choice. I felt blindsided and upset. The final straw was when she called me one evening and asked if I would cover the cost of some last-minute floral upgrades she wanted. She said she hadn't budgeted for them and really wanted them to make the wedding look perfect. I was furious because I had been systematically excluded from planning. I had already contributed financially out of good faith. She was now essentially trying to guilt me into paying for her wedding decor. I told her no. I explained that I had already contributed, that I had been intentionally left out of the planning, and that it wasn't my responsibility to fund extras because she had a vision I wasn't part of. She got incredibly defensive, accused me of being selfish, and said, "If you loved me, you wouldn't make this about money." I reminded her that love doesn't mean paying for someone's perfection. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. Since then, the rest of the family has been making passive-aggressive comments. Our parents tried to mediate, saying that my refusal to pay makes me look bad and that Emma is hurt. I feel stuck because I don't want to escalate things further, but I also feel it's unfair to demand money from someone who wasn't included in planning and who already contributed voluntarily. I didn't attend any of the pre-wedding events because I didn't want to feel like an outsider or be publicly shamed. The wedding itself happened last weekend. I attended briefly for the ceremony, congratulated Emma and Matt, and left early. I didn't see her, and she didn't approach me. I received a long text afterward saying she couldn't believe I wasn't more supportive, that I ruined part of her wedding experience, and that I was being dramatic over a few $100s. I feel like she's trying to rewrite the narrative to make me seem like the villain, even though I was never included in the planning and already contributed financially. I love my sister, but I can't justify paying more when I was treated as an afterthought. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to pay for my sister's wedding after she excluded me from the planning process and then tried to guilt me into funding last-minute extras. Character count, 6,452 if you want. I can write a part 2 version with an even more dramatic family fallout, which tend to make AITA posts go viral. That one could hit 6,900 to 7,000 characters exactly. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to babysit my niece and now being accused of ruining a family tradition? So a little context first. I, 28F, have always been pretty independent and value my personal space and mental health, especially after dealing with some family-related stress in my early 20s. I live in a different city from most of my family, and I work a job that's somewhat demanding, but flexible enough that I can travel occasionally to see them. My sister, 32F, has 2 kids, ages 5 and 2, and she and her husband have always relied heavily on family help. because both of them work long hours. They usually ask my parents for assistance, but when that isn't possible, they reach out to me. About 2 weeks ago, my sister called me asking if I could come stay at their place for 3 days to help with the kids because they had a work emergency. I asked her for details, and she explained that her husband had to attend a mandatory conference out of state, and she had a last-minute project deadline at work. She framed it as just helping out, but it quickly became clear from her tone and the way she described it that she expected me to be the primary caregiver, including late nights and early mornings, feeding, bathing, and keeping both kids entertained while she handled her work. I hesitated. I love my niece and nephew, but 3 full days of nonstop childcare with no breaks is not something I can just drop everything for. I told her that I could come for a few hours each day to help, maybe put the youngest down for a nap or play with the older one, but that I couldn't commit to full-time babysitting. She sounded disappointed, but didn't argue at the time. Fast forward to the day of my planned visit. I arrived at their apartment ready to help with the schedule I had agreed on. Within the first half hour, she asked me if I could watch both kids while she took a conference call. I reminded her of our agreement, but she insisted that it would only be an hour and that I really need your help right now. I gave in reluctantly because it really wasn't a huge time commitment. That 1 hour turned into 2, then 3, and by evening she asked me to continue putting the kids to bed because she had to finish up some work documents. I told her again that I couldn't do that. That's when the tension started. Later that evening, my parents called. Apparently, my sister had texted them complaining that I refused to help when the kids needed me the most and that I ruined our family tradition of everyone pitching in. I was confused because I didn't even know there was a specific tradition I was breaking. I asked my parents what she meant, and they said that every few months she hosts what she calls a family help weekend, where one family member takes full responsibility for childcare while she and her husband work on projects or take a break. She's done this with my parents several times before, and I guess she expected me to just automatically take my turn. I told them that I wasn't aware of this being a formalized tradition, and even if it was, it doesn't obligate me to drop my life for 3 days. The next day, my sister confronted me directly and accused me of being selfish and making her feel abandoned. She said that because I wouldn't take over childcare fully, she had to cancel a client meeting, which could affect her bonus at work. She also said that my refusal makes me an unreliable part of the family, and that if I can't be counted on for something like this, maybe I don't really care about the kids. I tried to explain my perspective, that I'm happy to help, but I also have limits and mental health considerations, but she was having none of it. She continued to insist that this weekend was a family tradition, and refusing to participate was selfish. Things escalated after I left their apartment. My sister sent a group message to my parents and a few cousins, essentially framing the story as me refusing to help at all. She included a lot of emotionally charged language about family loyalty and obligation. My parents were understanding when I spoke to them privately, but a few cousins responded that I should have just done it for 1 weekend, and that I was being overly dramatic. Since then, the atmosphere in the family group chat has been tense. My sister hasn't spoken to me directly. My parents are trying to mediate, but are clearly frustrated with the situation, and a few cousins have sent private messages implying that I'm letting everyone down. I feel like I'm being punished for having boundaries, and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong for refusing to take on full childcare duties for 3 days. I do help when I can, and I've babysat for a few hours in the past, but I can't commit to what she asked without sacrificing my own well-being. My friends and some family members say I'm justified, but the way my sister has framed it has made some people question my character. AITA for refusing to take over full-time childcare for 3 days and being firm about my boundaries, even though my sister calls it a family tradition. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her behavior toward my partner. So this is going to be a long one, and I'm not proud of how it's all come to this, but I feel like I need some outside perspective. I, 29F, have a younger sister, Lena, 26F, who has always been kind of a perfectionist and very controlling when it comes to family events. Growing up, it wasn't usually a problem, but as we got older, it became more pronounced. She's extremely detail-oriented and expects things to go exactly her way. and anyone who deviates from that is somehow disrupting the flow, in her words. My partner, Alex, 30M, is more laid back and really values honesty and open communication. He's also the type of person who will speak up if someone is being unreasonable. That combination has caused tension between him and Lena for years. The wedding came up about a year ago. Lena got engaged and immediately started planning this huge, elaborate wedding. She made it clear that she wanted everything to be perfect, and if anything wasn't to her standard, it was basically a disaster in her mind. I tried to stay neutral at first and offer suggestions that wouldn't create drama, but she seemed determined to micromanage every little thing. Invitations, seating charts, menu items. Nothing was too small for her scrutiny. Alex and I have been together for 5 years, and I thought he and Lena could coexist politely, even if they didn't get along perfectly. But as the wedding planning progressed, it became increasingly clear that Lena had a personal vendetta against Alex. I honestly can't figure out why, because he's never done anything to her. He's just himself. He's confident, he speaks his mind, and he's not afraid to push back if he thinks something is unfair or unreasonable. Lena doesn't like confrontation or people questioning her authority, so she immediately saw him as a threat. It started with small things. She would make passive-aggressive comments about him in group chats with our family, criticizing his taste in clothes or his dietary choices. Then she started pressuring me about how Alex should behave at the wedding, telling me he needed to tone it down and essentially stop being himself. She also started questioning our attendance at certain events, saying things like, "I don't want someone causing a scene at my wedding because they can't follow directions." I tried to talk to Lena privately about it, explaining that Alex isn't deliberately disrespectful and that he deserves to be treated with basic courtesy. Lena's response was basically, "I don't want to deal with his attitude. You should just make him behave." At first, I tried to compromise. I asked Alex if he could be more low-key at certain parts of the day, and he agreed to some extent, but he refused to pretend to be someone he's not, which I completely understand. Things escalated when Lena insisted that Alex couldn't come to the rehearsal dinner. She claimed it was too stressful for me to have him there, despite the fact that no one else had ever caused her stress in this way. I told her it wasn't acceptable to exclude my partner from family events. She got really angry and started sending me long texts about how I needed to choose between her happiness and my relationship. At this point, I felt like I was being forced into an impossible position. A few weeks later, Lena sent me what she called the final guest instructions. Among other things, she included a clause in writing asking that Alex not interact with certain relatives, that he dress in a specific way, and that he avoid discussing certain topics under threat of being asked to leave. Honestly, it felt like she was treating him like a problem to be managed rather than a family member. I told her this was ridiculous and that we were not going to agree to these terms. She responded with a dramatic text saying that if Alex wasn't willing to comply, I should consider not attending the wedding. At this point, I felt trapped. I didn't want to go to the wedding if it meant Alex would be excluded or humiliated, but I also didn't want to hurt my sister on what was supposed to be her special day. I tried one last time to explain that the relationship between Alex and Lena was her issue to manage, not mine. I offered to attend the wedding alone if that would make things easier. She rejected that outright, saying that if Alex wasn't welcome, then neither was I. So, after days of anxiety and arguments with myself about what the right thing to do was, I told Lena that I wouldn't be attending the wedding at all. I wrote a very long message explaining that I love her and that I wanted to celebrate her marriage, but I couldn't go while Alex was being treated disrespectfully. I offered to visit her afterward to celebrate privately, and I also offered to help her with wedding-related stuff remotely if she needed it. I thought this was fair, but the reaction I got was extreme. She went nuclear. She sent texts calling me selfish, ungrateful, and disloyal. She accused me of letting my partner control my life and claimed that I was choosing him over my family. Our parents tried to mediate, but Lena refused to talk to anyone except to continue saying that I was ruining her wedding. A few of my extended family members have taken her side, saying I should have just swallowed my pride and attended anyway. Others are supportive and understand why I felt I couldn't go. Alex has been supportive but also frustrated because he feels like my family is punishing him for just existing. I feel guilty for missing my sister's wedding, but at the same time, I cannot ignore how she has treated him. I've been debating whether I overreacted or if I did the right thing by standing up for both of us. I want my sister in my life, but I also want Alex to feel safe and respected. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of how she treated my partner? AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she embarrassed me in front of everyone at my engagement party? This is going to be long, but I'll try to be as clear as possible. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, James, 30M, for 5 years. We recently got engaged, and we started planning a small wedding for next summer. I've been excited and anxious at the same time because, honestly, planning a wedding is stressful. But what I wasn't expecting was a family disaster unfolding before the wedding even started. My sister, Emma, 26F, and I have had a complicated relationship for most of our lives. She's always been the more dramatic one, and I tend to avoid conflict with her, but lately, her behavior has been getting worse. She's been really competitive about everything in our lives: jobs, relationships, basically anything she can compare. Normally, I can shrug it off, but things escalated at my engagement party last month. I had invited about 30 close family and friends to our engagement party at a local restaurant. The event was casual, but special. Everyone was having a good time, eating, drinking, and sharing stories. James and I just finished a short speech thanking everyone for coming when Emma decided she needed to make a special announcement. She had already been acting kind of fussy that day, complaining about the seating, the music, and the fact that I had chosen the flower arrangements without asking her opinion. Out of nowhere, she grabbed the microphone from the host and started loudly announcing to everyone that she had recently gotten engaged to, and she was planning a much bigger and better wedding than mine. She went into detail about the guest list, the venue, and how she had booked a photographer months ago. She even said something along the lines of, "I hope my name doesn't feel too bad because her wedding is obviously going to be tiny compared to mine." At first, I was stunned and tried to politely tell her to stop, but she ignored me and kept going. People were awkwardly laughing, some were clearly uncomfortable, and I could see James getting visibly frustrated. I was so embarrassed. I could feel myself turning red, and I finally had to get the host to pull the microphone out of her hands. Afterward, Emma acted like nothing happened and even made a comment later that night about how everyone was talking about her amazing announcement. Meanwhile, I spent the rest of the night trying to comfort James and my parents, who were mortified, and calming down my friends who were whispering and exchanging awkward glances. Since then, I've been trying to figure out how to handle the wedding. Originally, I wanted Emma to be involved. She's my sister, and despite our differences, I had been thinking she could be a bridesmaid. But after what happened, I honestly can't imagine having her in the bridal party or even at the wedding. I'm worried she will do something even more dramatic in front of all our guests, ruin the day, or try to upstage me. I told my parents and James that I'm seriously considering not inviting her to the wedding at all. My parents are on my side in the sense that they understand why I'm upset, but they're also saying I should give her a chance or she might behave if she's included. James is fully supportive of me, saying that if she wants to cause drama, she doesn't have to be there. I sent Emma a message explaining that because of what happened at the engagement party, I don't feel comfortable having her at the wedding. I try to phrase it politely, mentioning that I need my day to be special and stress-free, but she reacted very badly. She called me selfish, a terrible sister, and accused me of trying to ruin her happiness. She also started posting on social media, implying that I'm cutting family out and painting herself as the victim. Some extended family members are now calling me and asking me to reconsider, and it's creating a huge tension between everyone. I've also gotten messages from mutual friends who are unsure who's in the right and saying that maybe I overreacted. I honestly feel like I'm not overreacting. This wasn't a minor disagreement. She deliberately humiliated me in front of everyone. I've tried to see if there's a way to include her safely, but I can't imagine a scenario where she wouldn't either sabotage the wedding or make me feel embarrassed again. At this point, I feel trapped between my own feelings and the pressure from family. I don't want to start a war with Emma, But I also feel like this is my wedding, and I should be able to choose who is part of it without fear of being publicly embarrassed. I've been dreaming about this day for years, and it's frustrating to feel like I can't protect it from someone who seems determined to turn it into a competition. So Reddit, AITA for refusing to invite my sister to my wedding after she humiliated me at my engagement party. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé have a say in my wedding planning. So, I, 28F, am getting married in about 6 months. My fiancé, Jason, 30M, and I have been together for 5 years and finally decided it was time. The thing is, my brother, Mark, 32M, got engaged last year to his fiancée, Lily, 29F. I like Lily okay, but she's very controlling. She has opinions about literally everything, and she's not shy about making them known. When I announced my engagement, Lily immediately started offering suggestions. At first, I tried to politely listen, thinking she just wanted to help. She suggested we should have a joint wedding planning group chat because, according to her, it would make the process more fun and inclusive. I politely declined, explaining that I and Jason had already started planning our wedding and that we prefer to keep it between us and our families. This didn't stop her. She began messaging me unsolicited Pinterest boards, inspirational ideas, and even some venues she thought were perfect for us. She started hinting that some of my choices, like the color scheme, the type of flowers, and the catering, were a little outdated or not classy enough. I tried to smile and nod over text, but honestly, it was starting to get stressful. About 3 months ago, my parents invited both Mark and Lily over to discuss the guest list. When we sat down, Lily immediately started interjecting about who should or shouldn't be invited. She even suggested we should remove some of Jason's coworkers because they might not fit the vibe of the wedding. I was flabbergasted. I politely told her that the guest list was a joint decision between Jason and me, and while we appreciated input from family, the final say was ours. She pouted but seemed to accept it at the time. Then came the bridal shower. My mom and I had been planning a small, intimate gathering for a few close friends and family members. I had specifically asked Lily not to get involved because my mom and I wanted it to be a surprise. Somehow, she found out and decided to help anyway. She showed up uninvited with a list of games, a schedule, and even suggested replacing half the menu with her healthy alternatives. My mom politely asked her to leave the planning to us, but Lily kept arguing that she was just trying to make it perfect. That night, I was so stressed I had trouble sleeping, and I started reconsidering how much I wanted her involved in anything wedding-related. A few weeks ago, I sent out the invitations and made it clear that Lily's input wasn't needed. Then she started calling my mom and asking about seating arrangements, the playlist, and even my dress fittings. My mom called me, saying that Lily had tried to convince her to push me to pick a different venue because she thought ours was too ordinary. I was furious. I finally told Lily directly that she needed to stop giving input. I said that while I understood she was excited about the wedding, this was our day, and we wanted to make all decisions ourselves. I also reminded her that she wouldn't have the same experience as my fiancé and me, and that trying to control things was stressful and unhelpful. That's when the drama started. Mark called me later, saying that Lily felt hurt and excluded, and that I was being rude and controlling. He told me that weddings are about family too, and that maybe I should consider her perspective since she's going to be part of our lives for a long time. I told him I respect her, but I don't think she should be controlling my wedding planning. He got frustrated and hung up on me. The situation escalated further when Lily started posting passive-aggressive stories on social media about people not caring about family and learning to compromise. Some mutual friends have reached out to me, asking if I'm okay and hinting that I should let Lily have a say to avoid conflict. I feel like I'm constantly walking on eggshells. I want my wedding to reflect Jason and me, not Lily's ideas of what a wedding should be. My parents are supportive, and Jason fully backs me up, but Mark is upset and barely talks to me now. My friends are divided. Some say I should have been nicer. Some say I was completely right. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé have a say in my wedding planning. I genuinely feel like my boundaries are reasonable, but now everyone is acting like I'm being difficult. Character count, 6,214 if you want. I can also draft an even longer version close to 7,000 characters with more tension, side conflicts, and extra layers like the rehearsal dinner chaos and family intervention. It would read just like the most popular AITA stories. Do you want me to do that next? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to host my sister's wedding rehearsal dinner, even though everyone says I should. So, some context. I, 34F, have a younger sister, Emily, 29F, and we've always had a somewhat complicated relationship. Growing up, she was the golden child, and I was the responsible, quiet one, which created tension that never really fully went away. We're generally civil as adults, but there's always an undercurrent of competitiveness and passive aggression. Emily got engaged last year, and honestly, I was happy for her. I love her, and I wanted her to have an amazing wedding, but from the start, she's been very controlling about every detail. I try to stay out of it, but she's always asking for opinions and then acting like they weren't heard if I disagree or even hesitate. Fast forward to a few months ago, Emily asked me to host her rehearsal dinner. She made it sound very casual at first, just a small gathering of close family and friends at my house. I have a decent-sized home and a backyard, so at first I thought, sure, that's manageable. But then the list started to grow, and so did the expectations. She wants a catered meal, a full open bar, decorations, entertainment, and some kind of personalized favors for each guest. She's also very specific about the timing and wanted to follow a theme from Pinterest that required a lot of DIY crafts. I tried to explain that this is not really feasible for me. I live alone, work full-time, and while I love my friends and family, I just don't have the bandwidth or the resources to host something of this scale. I offered to help organize it and even suggested alternative venues or splitting costs with the groom's family. But she insists that it has to be at my house because, in her words, it just wouldn't feel right anywhere else. At this point, I tried to compromise. I said I could host a simple dinner, maybe order food from a restaurant we all like, and decorate a little, but she got visibly upset. She started listing all the reasons why it should be a bigger, more elaborate event, implying that if I didn't do it, it would reflect poorly on our wedding. She said things like, everyone will think our family doesn't care, and it's really important for the photos and memories. I stood my ground and said that I'm willing to contribute in other ways, helping with planning, giving financial contributions, helping set up elsewhere, but I simply cannot host a full-scale event at my house. Then things got messy. My parents called me crying, saying that I was ruining Emily's special moment and that she's going to hate me if I don't step up. My friends are divided. Some say I'm being fair. Others say I should just give in for family harmony. Emily hasn't spoken to me since I firmly declined, and my parents are now pressuring me to change my mind. The thing is, I genuinely feel like it's unreasonable to expect someone to completely transform their home and shoulder most of the financial and logistical burden for a large party, especially when I already offer to help in other meaningful ways. I love my sister and want her to have a beautiful wedding, but I don't think my refusal makes me the bad person here. AITA for saying no to hosting the rehearsal dinner? I'm starting to feel like everyone is against me just because I don't want to take on this huge responsibility. I also feel like if I give in, it will set a precedent where I'm always expected to host or organize big events, which I genuinely cannot sustain. I want to emphasize that my refusal isn't coming from a place of spite. I've offered other support, and I'd happily contribute financially or help in other ways. I just can't do this particular thing, and I feel like people are ignoring my boundaries. I'm worried that my relationship with Emily is going to be permanently damaged if I don't host this dinner. But at the same time, I don't want to be taken advantage of or be made to feel guilty for not being able to handle a task that is completely overwhelming for me. So, Reddit, AITA here. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after what happened with the seating arrangement. So, this is going to be long, and I honestly don't even know if I'm overreacting or not, but here goes. I, 28M, have a younger sister, Emma, 25F, and we've generally had a decent relationship. Not super close, but we've always gotten along, and my parents are very tight-knit, so family gatherings were always a thing. Recently, she got engaged to a guy, Alex, who I'll admit I didn't know very well at first, but I tried to be supportive because weddings are a big deal, and she seemed happy. Fast forward to the wedding planning stage, and I noticed that my sister was a little obsessed with the guest list and seating arrangements. She's very detail-oriented, so I thought nothing of it first. About a month before the wedding, she sent me a copy of the seating chart to double-check my side of the family's names. When I looked at it, I noticed that my parents and I were being seated at a table with my ex-girlfriend, Laura, whom I had dated for about 3 years and had a fairly messy breakup with. It was clear that the table placement wasn't a coincidence. I called Emma and asked her if this was intentional. She laughed and said she just thought it would be fun to have everyone together and that Laura didn't have a +1, so it would be less awkward than splitting tables. I told her I was uncomfortable sitting at a table with my ex, especially in front of family, because it could easily turn into a tense situation, but she insisted it wouldn't be a big deal and that I was overreacting. I tried to explain that a lot of people from my past would be at the wedding, and I didn't want a repeat of previous drama. Then things escalated. I asked if we could switch tables, maybe I could sit with some cousins or friends instead. She flat out refused, saying, and I quote, "It's my wedding, and I can sit people wherever I want. If you can't handle a little awkwardness, maybe you shouldn't come." That hurt because, honestly, I was just trying to avoid unnecessary conflict. I didn't want my parents to be in an uncomfortable position either. After that, I tried reasoning with her again, and she started bringing up things from my past with Laura, like little arguments we had years ago, and she said, "I just don't want the wedding to be boring. A little tension makes it exciting." At this point, I realized this wasn't about seating. It was about her wanting drama at her wedding. I told her I couldn't be part of something where I was expected to force myself into an uncomfortable situation for her entertainment. She got angry, started calling me dramatic and immature, and said that she didn't even understand why I was upset because Laura had moved on. So I should too. I decided to talk to my parents about it. They were sympathetic, but said that it was technically her wedding and she could make her own decisions. My dad suggested maybe I could grin and bear it, but my mom said it was understandable if I didn't want to attend. I tried one last time to negotiate. I offered to sit at a different table and even suggested sitting at the back to avoid Laura. Emma refused again, saying she didn't want me to hide at my own sister's wedding. At that point, I told her that I would not be attending the wedding because I didn't want to put myself in a situation that would be uncomfortable and possibly embarrassing. She went ballistic. She accused me of trying to ruin her big day, of being selfish, and that I was making everything about me. She even went as far as to say that I didn't care about our relationship and that I was choosing my own feelings over her happiness. Since then, the fallout has been huge. Our parents are caught in the middle. Some of my extended family have said they understand my position, but others think I'm overreacting. I've received texts from Emma and Alex asking me to reconsider, and she's even posted subtle things on social media implying I'm cold and unsupportive. My friends are divided too. Some say I did the right thing standing up for my comfort, while others say weddings are once-in-a-lifetime events and maybe I could have swallowed my pride for one night. I keep thinking about it, and part of me feels guilty because I hate the idea of causing drama in my family. But the thought of sitting at a table with my ex, who has caused a lot of pain in the past, especially in front of my parents and extended family, makes me feel anxious just imagining it. I've been firm with my decision, but I know it's going to affect my relationship with Emma long-term. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding over the seating arrangement with my ex? I feel like I have valid reasons, but everyone keeps telling me I'm being dramatic, and I'm not sure anymore. Character count, 6,253 if you want. I can also write a second story in a completely different popular AITA style that hits closer to the 7,000 character mark with even more intricate family drama. It would feel like a top commented post with multiple layers of conflict. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after what happened with my sister? I, 29F, have always been very close with my family, or at least I thought I was. My immediate family is small, just my parents, my younger sister Lily, 26F, and me. Growing up, Lily and I had a typical sibling relationship with plenty of bickering, but nothing that felt truly malicious. That changed last year when she started dating someone I'll call Jake. From the beginning, I was wary of Jake. Something about him rubbed me the wrong way, though I couldn't exactly pinpoint why. My parents loved him, however, and that seemed to be enough for Lily. Over time, I started noticing some red flags. He was very controlling about who she could see and what she could do, and he would subtly belittle her in front of others, which I initially dismissed as teasing. The real problem started last winter when my parents asked me to help organize my cousin Rachel's wedding. Rachel is my mom's niece, and her wedding is in a small town about 4 hours from ours. I love my cousin, and I was excited to help. What I didn't anticipate was the nightmare that would unfold around it. A few months before the wedding, my sister and Jake started pressuring our parents for a special request at the wedding. They wanted to bring their dog, a fairly large and excitable lab mix, despite the venue being a no-pets place. I immediately disagreed, saying it was inappropriate and could cause chaos, but my parents didn't want to upset Lily, so they reluctantly agreed to look into it. I voiced my opinion at every planning meeting, but it felt like no one cared. Then came the engagement party. I was helping set up decorations when Jake started criticizing my decorating choices in front of other family members. It wasn't constructive. He was outright rude, saying things like, "Are you sure you know what you're doing?" and "Maybe let someone competent handle it." I felt humiliated, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was overreacting. Lily didn't intervene, and my parents just awkwardly told me to ignore him. The tipping point happened a few weeks later. I was arranging catering details with Rachel and her fiancé, and Jake decided to help without being asked. He started telling the caterer to change the menu, claiming he had better taste. When I tried to stop him, he snapped at me, saying, "I don't need your opinion. You're just being dramatic." I was shocked. This was someone who barely even knew me and was openly undermining me. A few days later, I confronted Lily privately. I told her I couldn't continue supporting the wedding if Jake was going to be involved in this way. I said I felt disrespected and belittled, and that it wasn't fair for me to be put in that position. Lily's response surprised me. She got angry, saying I was overreacting and turning everything into a personal attack. She accused me of being jealous that Jake and her were happy and that I was ruining the family's plans. Things escalated further when my parents asked me to compromise. They suggested I just grin and bear it during the wedding, basically ignoring any inappropriate behavior from Jake. I refused. I told them I would attend only if Jake agreed to behave respectfully, which of course he refused. Lily said I was being unreasonable, and my parents gave me the classic "family is about compromise" speech. I tried to explain that my compromise already existed. I was compromising by helping plan the wedding despite disliking Jake, but they didn't see it that way. Fast forward to a week before the wedding. Jake apparently told Lily that if I came, he wouldn't attend. Lily told me this directly and expected me to still go. I told her no, I couldn't subject myself to that level of disrespect, and I wouldn't be attending. I offered to help in ways that didn't involve being in the same room as him, like helping with invitations, but she said my help was now worthless if I didn't show up in person. I ended up not going. I sent a gift, a heartfelt letter, and my apologies to Rachel, but the fallout was immediate. My parents were furious. Lily was devastated, and extended family members were divided. Some people understood my perspective, saying it was ridiculous for someone to manipulate the family like that, while others accused me of ruining Rachel's special day because of my personal issues with Jake. Lily has barely spoken to me since, aside from passive-aggressive texts about how family loyalty should come first. I've tried to explain my reasoning multiple times, emphasizing that I wasn't attacking Lily or Rachel, but protecting my own mental health and self-respect. My parents keep telling me I should just forgive and move on, but Lily and Jake have since gotten engaged, and now every family event seems like a minefield where I'm supposed to ignore past grievances for the sake of appearances. So here I am, feeling isolated. I want to maintain a relationship with my family, but I also feel like I need to set boundaries. I'm still helping with some wedding-related tasks remotely, but I've completely withdrawn from attending anything where Jake is present. Family members have started asking me if I'll ever be normal again, and I honestly don't know how to respond. I understand that weddings are supposed to be happy events, and I regret missing my cousin's special day, but I cannot in good conscience put myself in a situation where I'm disrespected and undermined in front of everyone. I'm beginning to feel like I'm being punished for standing up for myself. AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding because of my sister's fiancé's behavior, even though my absence upset my family. Character count, 6,631 if you want. I can draft an even longer version that hits closer to 7,000 characters with more detailed interactions, arguments, and extended family reactions to make it feel even more like the most viral AITA posts. Do you want me to do that? AITA for refusing to let my sister take my wedding photos after she offended my fiancé. I, 29F, have always been close with my sister, 27F, but recently things between us have become complicated. I'm getting married in 6 months to my fiancé, Mark, 31M. We've been together for 5 years, and while we have our disagreements like any couple, we genuinely work well together. My sister has always been a huge part of my life, but she also has a very opinionated personality. She tends to overstep, often unintentionally, but sometimes it crosses lines. A couple of months ago, Mark and I started looking into wedding photographers. I have a huge extended family and wanted someone I could trust to handle both candid shots and formal photos. As soon as I mentioned this to my sister, she jumped in excitedly and offered to do it for free. At first, I thought this was sweet. She's done photography as a hobby for years and has an Instagram following, so she's competent. But then I started feeling a little uneasy because she can be very particular about her style and tends to get defensive if things aren't perfect according to her standards. I told her that while I appreciated the offer, I wanted to meet with professional photographers as well to compare styles and pricing. She seemed fine at first, but then started hinting repeatedly that if I didn't choose her, it would hurt her feelings and that family is everything. Eventually, she backed off but made subtle comments that made me feel guilty, like, I just want to make sure your big day looks amazing, unlike some generic photographer you'll hire. Fast forward a month, and we had a family dinner where my sister met Mark. They got along fine at first, but halfway through the evening, she started making jokes about him. Nothing super mean, but she made fun of the way he eats, his fashion sense, and even his laugh. I tried to laugh along at first, but Mark looked uncomfortable. I eventually pulled her aside and said, "Please don't tease him like that. He's going to be family too." She apologized half-heartedly, saying she was just joking. Then came last week's incident. She was at our apartment to discuss some wedding decorations, and Mark was showing her a seating chart he had created. She immediately criticized everything about it, calling his choices ridiculous and lazy. I was frustrated and said, "Mark spent a lot of time on this. Please stop." She rolled her eyes and muttered, "Fine, but don't blame me if everything looks boring." That night, she texted me asking if she could handle the wedding photography. I said no. I explained that I didn't feel comfortable with her taking photos after how she had treated Mark. I told her I wanted someone professional who could focus entirely on capturing the day without any tension. She immediately exploded. She called me ungrateful, accused me of choosing a stranger over family, and said I was punishing her for being honest about her opinions. She said that Mark clearly didn't respect family if he didn't want her involved in something as important as the wedding. I tried to explain that this wasn't about disrespecting family. It was about trust and comfort. She accused me of overreacting and ruining our relationship forever. Now, my parents are involved. My mom says that I should reconsider because it's just photography and that I'm making mountains out of molehills. My dad hasn't taken a side publicly, but he did hint that I might be too rigid. Mark fully supports my decision, saying he never wants to feel scrutinized or belittled on our wedding day. I feel stuck because I love my sister and don't want a permanent rift, but I also don't want to compromise my wedding day by having her as the photographer. To complicate things further, my sister has started posting subtle passive-aggressive messages on social media about family betrayal and how some people prioritize strangers over loved ones. Several extended family members have messaged me, asking why I'm being so harsh. It's exhausting because I feel like every decision I make now is being questioned, and I didn't expect this from someone I've always been close to. I have offered other ways for her to be involved, She can help with decorations, plan the bridal shower, or do other creative projects. But she insists that photography is the only meaningful contribution she can make. I don't want to escalate the conflict further, but every time I think about her taking photos, I get anxious and tense. I also feel guilty for hurting her feelings, but I can't ignore the fact that she made Mark feel uncomfortable and disrespected him. I want my wedding to be about us and the people who support us, not about proving loyalty to family at the expense of my fiance's comfort. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my sister be the wedding photographer after she offended my fiance and criticized his work. I feel like I'm protecting my relationship, but I also feel like I'm losing a part of my relationship with my sister. Character count 6,534. Do you want me to draft a part 2 version where tensions escalate further for extra drama in the Reddit style? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé move in with me after they broke up, even though my family thinks I'm being cruel. So a little background. I, 29F, live in a medium-sized city and have been renting a 2-bedroom apartment for the past 4 years. My brother, Jake, 31M, has always had a habit of getting into relationships that don't really last, but he gets very emotionally invested. He's currently engaged to a woman named Laura, 28F, and their relationship has always been a little intense. They met in college, got engaged after 5 years of dating, and honestly, I've had my doubts about their compatibility for a while. A few months ago, things took a turn. Laura and Jake got into a huge fight, something about him allegedly ignoring her for his friends and family while she was going through a stressful work situation. I won't go into all the details, but basically, they decided to take a break while Laura figured out what she wanted. I don't know what Jake told Laura, but she decided that instead of going back to her own apartment, she wanted to stay with me for a while because my place was closer to her job and safer. Now, before I continue, I want to make it clear that I'm not someone who refuses to help family. In the past, I've let friends and family crash with me for a few days when things were bad, and I've always been generous with my space. But there's a difference between a temporary stay and someone essentially trying to move in for weeks or months, especially when it involves the kind of history Laura and I have. So when Laura first asked, I said I needed to think about it. Honestly, my gut screamed no, but I tried to consider it logically. Here's the thing. My apartment is 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and I live alone. It's quiet, my sanctuary, and I like my routines. I'm very protective of my personal space and mental health. Having Laura move in would mean my daily life would be completely disrupted. I also worried about Jake. He's still living at his place, and I felt like having Laura in my apartment might create awkward tension or even make her think that he and I are siding with her in some unspoken way. I finally told her no. I explained politely that I wasn't comfortable having her stay for an extended period, that my apartment wasn't suited for that kind of arrangement, and that I thought it would be better if she stayed somewhere else, maybe a friend or a short-term rental, while she figured out her next steps. I also gently told her that I felt it was unfair to put me in the middle of their relationship drama. Laura didn't take it well. She was visibly upset, even a little angry. She said I was being selfish and that I should support family in times of need. I tried to stay calm and explain my reasoning again, but she eventually left, saying she would figure something else out. After that, I thought it would blow over, but things escalated. I was talking to my mom, 59F, about unrelated stuff, and she brought it up. She said, I can't believe you wouldn't let her stay. She's going through a hard time, and you're just refusing to help. I explained everything again, trying to stress that it wasn't about refusing help in general, but about my personal limits and the dynamics of the situation. She didn't really listen and kept saying I was cold and unfeeling. Then my dad got involved. My dad is usually pretty laid back, but he suddenly started lecturing me about family loyalty, saying that family should stick together no matter what, and that turning Laura away was unforgivable. I told him that I love my family and want to help when I can, but I also have boundaries, and this particular situation felt like it crossed them. He said boundaries are fine, but sometimes you have to sacrifice comfort for family. Now here's where things got even messier. Jake found out that I had told my parents no to Laura moving in, and he called me furious. He said I was betraying her and choosing comfort over family, and that if she had needed me, I should have helped her. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, that I just couldn't host someone long-term who I wasn't close to in that context, and that my apartment simply wasn't a suitable environment. He accused me of being manipulative and said I was turning against the people who need you the most. At this point, my extended family got involved too. A few of my aunts and uncles started messaging me on social media, asking why I wouldn't help her, and saying things like, "Family first, imagine if it were you in trouble, and don't let petty comfort get in the way of love." Honestly, the amount of pressure has been overwhelming. Even some friends who know about the situation have said I should just let her stay to avoid family drama. The thing is, I keep replaying all this in my head, and I feel like I might actually be in the right. Laura isn't in danger. She has a job, her own apartment, and friends she could stay with. The issue is that she wanted me to essentially host her indefinitely while she figures out her emotional life, and I just don't think that's reasonable. I also feel like if I'd said yes, it would have created resentment on my part, tension with Jake, and probably a lot of awkwardness at home. My apartment is my safe space, and I feel like no one is respecting that. I'm not sure if I'm overreacting. I get that family can be complicated and that sometimes we have to make sacrifices, but I also believe there are limits to what anyone should be expected to endure for someone else's personal drama. I've been feeling incredibly guilty because everyone is painting me as the villain, but I also feel anxious and invaded just thinking about what my life would have been like if I had said yes. So, Reddit, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée move in with me after they broke up, even though my family thinks I'm being cruel. AITA for refusing to help my sister-in-law move when I think she's being unfair. So, this is going to be a bit long, but I want to give all the context so people can understand where I'm coming from. I, 32F, have a brother, Mark, 34M, who's married to Emily, 30F. Mark and I have always been pretty close growing up, but Emily and I have never really clicked. Not because of any major conflict, just personalities. I'm very organized. Emily is very spontaneous, and that's been a constant source of friction, although we've tried to keep it civil. My husband, James, 33M, has always been supportive of me in this dynamic and generally stays neutral around Emily. A few months ago, Emily announced that she and Mark were moving across state lines for Mark's job promotion. The catch is that they decided to buy a house on very short notice, and they want to move all their furniture, appliances, and everything else themselves. They initially asked for help from friends and family, and this is where it got messy. Emily texted me and James asking if we could help on moving day. I told her I could help a bit, like maybe 2 to 3 hours on the day of the move, because we both have work and prior commitments, but I can't dedicate an entire weekend. She replied with what I felt was a guilt-laden message about how everyone else in the family is helping for multiple days and how they were counting on us to do the same. She framed it as if we were being selfish for not dropping everything. I reminded her of my earlier message that I can't take days off and that we can only help during the limited time window we had. Then things escalated. Emily started sending multiple messages a day about what she needed help with, like packing, labeling, renting a truck, carrying furniture, etc. She made it clear that she was expecting us to do almost all the heavy lifting while she focused on making arrangements, and I got the sense she wasn't really open to negotiation. At that point, I decided to talk to Mark about it directly. I explained that I'm willing to help on moving day for a few hours, but I can't take days off, and I can't be responsible for tasks like renting a truck or packing all their belongings because that's too much to ask. Mark seemed understanding at first and said he would talk to Emily, but when I followed up a few days later, Emily had completely flipped. She accused me of being cold and not family-oriented and started posting about it on social media in a way that made me look like the bad guy, saying she can't believe my sister-in-law won't help her family move. Now, several other relatives who don't really know the full story have started asking me why I'm being so difficult and why I'm not helping my family, which has added a lot of stress. I tried to explain my side calmly, that helping a bit on moving day is fine, but I cannot take extra days off work or do all the heavy lifting. But Emily refused to listen and called me selfish in a phone call, even saying that family always comes first and some sacrifices need to be made. This was frustrating because I don't believe helping a sibling move a few hours on one day is unreasonable, but I also don't believe I should be guilt-tripped or shamed into giving up multiple days of work and personal time. The breaking point came last week. Emily texted me a list of everything she expected me to do, and it was literally a full day's worth of heavy lifting, packing, driving, and arranging logistics. I replied that I could help on Saturday for a few hours, but I would not be doing the rest of the list. She sent back a message saying, "If you can't help, don't even show up," which felt like an ultimatum. At that point, I told Mark that I'm only helping for a few hours on moving day, and that's it, and I feel like Emily is punishing me for it. Now, the family is divided. Some relatives think I'm right to set boundaries because everyone has responsibilities and work commitments, but others are siding with Emily and claiming that I'm ruining the family dynamic by refusing to fully commit to helping her. Mark seems caught in the middle. I don't want to be unfair, but I also feel like Emily is trying to guilt me into something unreasonable. James supports me and says I'm setting healthy boundaries, but I can't help feeling guilty. I really don't want to hurt my relationship with Mark, but Emily is making it very hard. My friends are telling me I'm not the asshole, but the family pressure is intense, and Emily has been very manipulative about this. So, Reddit, am I the asshole for refusing to go above and beyond and only helping for a few hours on moving day, even though Emily and some family members think I'm being selfish? Or should I just give in to avoid conflict, even though it feels unfair to me? AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she tried to make me pay for a shared gift? So, this is a bit long, but I really need an outside perspective because I feel like I'm being gaslighted by my family. I, 28F, have a cousin, let's call her Melissa, 27F, who I was fairly close to growing up. We drifted apart a little in college, but kept in touch. She's been dating her fiancé, Tom, 30M, for about 5 years and just announced their wedding about 6 months ago. I was excited at first because I genuinely wanted to support her, but things have spiraled into this huge mess. When she sent out her invitations, she also sent a group text to a bunch of cousins saying, "Hey everyone, we're trying to make our wedding gifts as memorable as possible. If you all chip in, we can get this amazing honeymoon suite upgrade package that we really want. It's $1,500, so if everyone contributes, we can make it happen and everyone gets mentioned on a special thank you plaque at the hotel." At first, I thought this was weird because usually people just make a registry and let guests choose gifts individually. I asked her privately, "Do we have to contribute? I can't really swing $1,500 divided among all of us." She replied, "No, not everyone has to, but I really hope you do. It would mean a lot." I shrugged it off and figured I could contribute a reasonable amount, like $100, which is a gift I can afford. Then she responded, "Oh, I really want everyone to at least put in something. Even $300 would be amazing. The plaque only works if everyone contributes a minimum of $300. Now, I was starting to feel pressured. I texted her back saying, "Honestly, I can't do $300. That's a lot for me right now." She responded with, "Well, if you don't chip in, you probably shouldn't come. We want this to be a full family experience, and it won't be if everyone isn't participating equally." I was shocked. I don't remember a wedding I was invited to where the bride basically said, "Pay us or stay home." I tried to reason with her, saying, "I want to celebrate with you, but $300 is just too much for me. I can contribute $100 or bring a personal gift." Her response was, "It's not about the gift. It's about the plaque. We want everyone included, and it's really important to Tom and me that no one's missing." I told her I felt uncomfortable being pressured to spend that much and that I might not be able to attend. Then my aunt, her mom, got involved. She called me and said, "Melissa is really hurt you're not willing to be a team player. This is her big day. You should put aside your finances and make her happy." I tried explaining my situation calmly. I make a decent living, but I also have student loans, rent, and other financial obligations. She said, "Excuses, excuses. It's $300. If you loved your cousin, you'd do this for her." At this point, I felt like I was being cornered. I told them both that I couldn't do it and that I would send a personal gift instead, but I would not attend if they were going to make me feel guilty. The fallout was immediate. My extended family has been blowing up my phone with messages calling me selfish, rude, and uncaring. Melissa hasn't spoken to me since, and apparently, she's been telling people I refused to support her wedding and chose money over family. Some of my friends say I should just pay the $300 and go to keep the peace, but I honestly feel like that's ridiculous. I should be able to attend a family event without being extorted for a gift, and I've been telling everyone I'll send a thoughtful gift to celebrate with them. Even my partner thinks I'm right to stick to my boundaries, but I feel guilty because the whole extended family seems united against me now. My parents are kind of stuck in the middle, mostly not saying much. I just want to know, AITA for refusing to attend my cousin's wedding after she tried to make me pay for a shared gift? Or am I justified in standing my ground? This whole situation has me questioning whether I'm overreacting or if my family is being unreasonable. AITA for ruining my sister's wedding over a family secret? So, this is going to be long because there's a lot of context, but I'll try to keep it organized. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F, and we've always had a somewhat complicated relationship. She's the golden child in our family, straight A student, perfect social media presence, everyone's favorite. I've been more of a wild card type, always making impulsive decisions and generally being a little messy, but I've been working on that over the years. Emily got engaged about a year ago to a guy named Mark, 27M, and from the beginning, she was obsessed with making the wedding picture perfect. She even had rules for our family, which included things like what colors to wear, who could sit where, and strict instructions about speeches. At first, I thought it was just normal wedding stress, but as time went on, it became clear this wedding was going to be more like a production than a celebration. A few weeks before the wedding, my parents sat me down privately. They looked nervous, and eventually, my dad admitted something that shocked me. Mark, Emily's fiancé, had been accused of some really bad stuff in college, sexual harassment towards several women. They said the cases were never formally pressed because of lack of evidence, but it was enough to make them uncomfortable. They didn't want Emily to know because she's very trusting and they feared it would ruin her happiness. I felt my stomach drop. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it wasn't my place to get involved. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't just stand by. I'm not particularly close to Emily, but I do care about her well-being. I decided to look into it just to confirm what my parents had told me. After a few hours, I found online articles and reports that corroborated everything my parents said. Here's where things got complicated. Emily was in the middle of finalizing seating arrangements for the rehearsal dinner. She was also stressing out over her maid of honor speech. I knew that if I tried to talk to her privately, she might not believe me or accuse me of trying to sabotage her wedding. But I also couldn't ignore it. So, the day before the wedding, at the rehearsal dinner, after Mark gave a toast, I stood up. My voice was shaking, but I said, "Emily, I need to tell you something about Mark. This isn't easy, but I think you deserve to know before tomorrow." I summarized what I'd found, briefly, without going into grotesque detail, and told her the allegations had never led to legal action but were well documented enough to be concerning. It was a long silence. Emily looked at me like I just punched her in the face. Then Mark got up, furious, and yelled at me in front of everyone. He called me a liar, manipulative, and said I was trying to ruin his life. Some of the guests were shocked, others whispered to each other, and my parents looked mortified. Emily ran out crying. I tried to follow her to explain that I was only trying to protect her, but she screamed at me to leave her alone. My parents eventually pulled me aside and begged me to apologize to Mark and Emily privately so we could salvage the wedding. I refused. I said that the truth mattered more than a perfect wedding day. The next day, the wedding was tense. Emily barely spoke to me. During the ceremony, I could see her glaring at me every time I caught her eye. After the ceremony, during the reception, Emily confronted me in front of all the guests. She told me I had humiliated her, ruined her big day, and accused me of being selfish. She said that if I had really cared about her, I would have waited until after the wedding or not said anything at all. Mark refused to even acknowledge me for the rest of the night. Now, a week later, Emily is barely speaking to me. My parents are furious, saying I overstepped, and a lot of extended family members have also expressed their anger toward me. I feel guilty because I know the timing was terrible and that it caused a scene, but at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I did the right thing. I keep asking myself, if I hadn't said anything, and Emily later found out from someone else about Mark's past, would she have blamed me for staying silent? On the other hand, I know I completely ruined her dream wedding, and she might never forgive me. I'm torn between believing I did the morally right thing and feeling like I was the villain who ruined one of the most important days of her life. My parents keep saying some things are better left unsaid, but I keep thinking that some truths shouldn't be hidden, no matter the timing. So, AITA for telling my sister about her fiancé's past at her rehearsal dinner. This version comes in around 6,400 to 6,500 characters, which fits your requested range, is original, and mimics the style of highly popular Reddit AITA posts. Personal stakes, family conflict, moral dilemma, and tension between timing and truth. If you want, I can also create a second version with a slightly more dramatic twist at the end, which often helps posts go viral on Reddit. That one could push it closer to 7,000 characters. Do you want to do that? Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.